Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Design Code series, a podcast where we chat about how AI, data, and design are shaping our world. Think of this as a space to explore how these technologies influences our surroundings, from homes to cities. I'm your host, Sarah Kademi, an AI scientist and fellow architecture enthusiast. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the first episode of the Design Code. I'm coming from Het New Institute here. We are at the Museum of Architecture and Digital Culture. That's why you probably hear some noises. And I'm super happy to kick off this series with two incredible guests. First, we have Sarah Williams, an associate professor at MIT, Massachusetts Institute of Technology, and director of the Civic Data Design Lab. Sarah's work focuses on the ethical use of data for the public good, a concept she calls data action. She has initiated bold and thought provoking projects on sensitive and often controversial topics such as prisons, immigration, and urban justice. Her research challenges us to think about how data can be used not only to analyze the world, but also to make it a better place. Alongside her, I'm thrilled to welcome Angela Rout, an assistant professor at TU Delft's Faculty of Architecture, my colleague and the director of the Living Data Studies. We are recording this episode here where we are awaiting the opening of the Living Data Conference, a fantastic initiative that Angela has organized. So, without further ado, welcome Sarah, welcome Angela.
Thank you for inviting us
Yeah,
to have
thank
a
you.
conversation. And
Great.
that, I didn't realize it wasn't the first one. Also, very excited to be.
Yes. Oh, I forgot to say that actually this episode series are sponsored by AI initiative from Delft University of Technology, where we have also the mugs here.
Great.
Um, so super happy to be here, super happy to have you, and I'm looking forward to our conversation about AI, data, and design. So, if I may, I will start with Sarah. And also, I will start with my own interest, which is artificial intelligence and my background. Because I saw that you have this recent publication on people powered generative AI and collaborating with generative AI for civic engagement. And I would love to hear success story. So, if you can, first of all, tell a bit about the project or the paper, and also how do you think? Can you give us an example of a successful and meaningful implementation of this technology within urban design or civic engagement, citizen engagement? That would be great.
Great. So glad you asked about this project because it was a really exciting project that we collaborated on with the city of Boston. And actually, the city of Boston has been really innovating in thinking about generative AI because their CTO was the first to release a memo of how generative AI can be used in government. So when it came out November, was that 2022? OpenAI released, or was it 2023? OpenAI released on
The
2020.
the which model you mean? Ah,
ChatGPT. It
okay.
was
So
it was
the
November.
last version, I think the last version was 2023.
2023, yeah.
Yes.
So when
Yeah.
that opened up, cities across the U.S. and everywhere were thinking about how they could use it. And Santi Garce, who was the CTO of the city of Boston, created a memo about its use. But then we started to think about, one of the biggest things that cities do is communicate with their citizens. It's the most important thing is this kind of communication and cross communication with citizens. And we thought, how could generative AI be really helpful and useful for that? So we just developed a workshop series with the city, with their public engagement officers from multiple different areas, whether it's people who do design work, but also people who are thinking about new policy structures. And we collaborated to think about the areas we thought it would be most useful. And I would say we found two different areas that were very useful for the city of Boston and we're continue to work on. And one is generative AI is really great at dealing with qualitative data and organizing qualitative data and helping synthesize that qualitative data. And so one of the things that we did is on Blue Hill Avenue, there was a redevelopment plan that had hours and hours of community meetings. It had data about the avenue. It had interviews with bus drivers, pedestrians, and then they ultimately developed a plan. And we put this all into a RAG model so that we could use it with citizens to tell them how, let's say, these interviews translated to something in the plan. And
You
we,
did interview the citizens for the qualitative data that you're talking
the
about.
city of Boston
The city
interviewed.
of Boston.
Yeah, the
And
city of
they were in
Boston.
form of text, basically.
Exactly.
This data.
Unstructured,
Unstructured
unstructured,
text data.
unstructured text data. There were some structured surveys that we included into the model. Some structured data like 311 complaints or complaints to the city. And then we also added to the model the eventual policy plans that were implemented out of this. And what we use this for is to say, from the interviews, what do you see in the plan as an action, right? So that the community could see a connection between their voice and what was outlined in the plan. And so we created this basically very small model that was just trained on all of the data that was used by the urban planners in order to translate some of the actions. Because I think one of the things that happens when we create a development plan is, we don't always see the comments in the plan in the interviews and questions. And so it was really helpful for the community to see the connection between their comments, their thoughts, and how they were directly put together in the plan. And I think that, there's so much we do in civic government that is qualitative, unstructured interviews, comments, community meetings, council meetings that can be really fed into these models and help summarize. And so instead of, I mean, we had thousands of hours of transcript data that we were putting in there, and it really helped us when we're working with the community instantly kind of summarize those. So I thought that was a really successful result, and in fact the communities really loved it, but also the government officials really liked it because not only could they help answer some of these questions, but they actually could start to ask new questions of this thousands of hours of and think about new ways that they might have responded to it. So I thought that was really successful. Another, yeah,
Sorry,
yeah.
I'm going to push you a bit here because you were talking about collecting all this data from citizens and also meetings, etc. So there were public also involved. How did you go about explaining them, or did you do that actually to explain them whether their data are going to be used, for example, or processed by AI? Into the plan, or was it a bit blind at the beginning? So that you just started the project and then you thought, okay, this is a good idea to use AI to cluster, basically, right? That's what you did, the
Yeah. So
clustering.
the project was started before this workshop series, and the standard of practice in terms of collecting the data. They had release forms and other kinds of discussion about how their data would be used that was outside of this particular experiment. It was never, when they did the interviews, it was never intended, let's say, to be used in this way. And that's part of the experiment. I think that the transcripts did say that the data would be modeled, or when the citizens sign and do the survey, they talk about how it could potentially be used. But that we decided to basically mimic a process that's already been done and then see how well the AI translated that process as a way to test the outcomes from it, if that makes sense.
So it was not really designed to be clustered or categorized by AI. So it was the original form of the survey that you did with the citizens, and then you used it as
You
a tool basically to,
and then we inputted it into the model or use
yeah,
it as
yeah,
a
train them. Yes.
driving force. But um, yeah, but I will say that, as mentioned, one of the things is that we brought these to the community members that did do the original surveys that were interested in Blue Hill Avenue, and we did explain how AI worked to them before we had the conversation, or kind of a brief explanation of what we did, why we did it that way, and what we hope we would achieve by using this to have a conversation. And I think that was really interesting because most of the residents said they didn't trust AI, they wouldn't believe it. These are the kind of comments that we had at the beginning of the meeting. And then when we began together to ask our model questions, they were super impressed with the results. That's not to say I'm sure there were things that might have been accurate. We didn't come across that in the meeting, but one of the things that we did discuss a lot is how to critique the results that come out of an AI model and how to be aware of that. So every time somebody asked a question, we asked them to think, do you believe this to be true? Do you believe what the model's output? Why or why not? And that helped us also have a larger conversation about what AO is doing, but also how it's working to understand their input and then summarize it.
I see. So I think in your article you're also talking about this human oversight. So that's part of AI governance, and how would you trust basically the output of these models? Could you explain a bit like the critical part? Because this seems to be a conclusion that you have based on the observation and what happened between citizen and the questions and the results. How did you come to this conclusion that human oversight is actually necessary for using this model? Because this is something that many AI scientists also working with, how to basically make it more transparent, interpretable for users, especially when you use it in large scale, for example, in civic engagement. How did happen within your project?
Yeah. I mean, as I mentioned, well, I mean, it's so important. AI is a tool, just like any other tool, and tools can be used for good or bad. And I think we always started that conversation, and that tools without proper human use, proper human oversight, can be used in ways that are inappropriate or without critique can be problematic. So we talk about that at the beginning, but maybe I'll give you one example that was really helpful for everyone to understand. We had data from 311, and the community members started asking, like, how many rap complaints are in my neighborhood, and there weren't that many, even though they know that they complained, and that's because they were categorized as rodents. And so then we were able to have this whole conversation about how you ask the model question is really important, and that critiquing not your results is also important. Is it believable? How can you verify that what you have asked it is true? Can you compare it to information that exists already out there so that you can do those checks? So it was really nice to have those conversations. And I think because a lot of people who are trying to use AI tools are data novices. Like, we all know in data, we might be calling rats, mice, rodents, vermins, or other things to make sure that we account for all of those names. A novice user might not know that. And so these are the kinds of conversations that we talked about, and that, like any tool, we need that kind of oversight.
Yeah, so you need to design the interaction to get the desirable output that you want from these models. Um, so you have used one of these most powerful models, as you said, just came out, and then people who are pro technology just took it and tried to make it work for urban design or civic engagement. Um, how do you see the role of citizens in shaping this technology? Is it because sometimes it feels like we are just trying to catch up with the technology and use it, and then we have no say into, well, we actually needed that, as you said. For example, the models counting for different names for the same object, or uh, basically they are designed to be very generic. However, you would need maybe a very specific one for a certain application, especially as I said again, in scale things would be much more, I would say, difficult to deal with if it goes wrong, especially if they're citizen and well, they were not involved in designing and in developing this technology. Uh, do you have an example, or do you have basically? I'm looking for an optimism here, right? So, is it a way that citizen could shape the way the technology, the direction of the technology and development goes?
Yeah, I have an idea about this, so I'm glad you asked.
Super.
Maybe I'm going to take the conversation in a different direction from exactly what you're asking, but I think that'll be fun anyways. But I mean, I think one of the things that really struck me as we started working and just all along since ChatGPT and other generative AI tools came out is how it doesn't always reflect the urban environment or the environment or knowledge base of citizens. And so one of the things that we're working on with the city of Boston now, and as a tangent to this early problem, is how do we create a Boston-based AI model that is tagged and built by the citizens of Boston, and so that they co-own this database of tagged images, text, word, that those data is theirs to upload, but then they own and manage who can have access to it and who can use it. So right now we just finished writing a grant for that, but we plan to work with the city of Boston on developing this, let's say, co-ownership model. And it's something like, I don't know if you know iNaturalist, like, which is like a collaborative model for insects or biodiversity and how that can be. We want to allow cities to co-own the models and decide who has access to that use of it. I would hope that if we could replicate that in other places, that those models could then be connected to each other and hopefully drive a more community approach to data. I think when we think about urban design, urban planning, architecture, there's so much, I guess, missing in the data, and that is just not tagged with the kinds of terms that we use, vegetated swale or landscape solutions for X, Y, and Z. That would be included in it. For the first model, though, we're really thinking about having citizens in Boston help us with tagging building materials and things so that we can use it for an energy. Um, it's basically a program that we have to assess how much energy is being used in the home, and so if we can know what's outside, how many windows are outside, and so forth for that.
Okay, very interesting. Co-ownership of the data. I think that would also impact how would they trust AI if this data are being used basically to create these models, right? I think it's very fascinating. It would be very complicated, I'm afraid, but I'm not going into that direction. But I think uh, yeah, there are technologies to support that, and I would look forward to see what comes out of it. So I will be following you on that. Um, Great. I have one more question, and then we'll move to Angela. The question that I have is more on the approach to AI development. You're coming from US, and we are here in Europe. So in European model, prioritizes ethics a bit and regulation first, and slowing down a bit the development of these AI products. And then instead we have a U.S. American model which focuses on innovation, market-driven growth. And given your work on data for the public good, uh, it seems that it's more aligned with the European, I would say, approach. Or please correct me if I'm wrong. I would like to hear um, about your experience with AI and these two different approaches, and which one do you think it best fits for the application that you're working on? So using technology for public good, for urban design and engagement of the citizens.
I mean, well, I'm of course very interested in the European model. I think it's important to have some protections about privacy, so forth. And some of the work again that I've been doing with cities in the U.S. even there's like questions about privacy. I mean, and right now, a lot of the cities are using OpenAI tools, whether it be Google or OpenAI or others, and they have no idea if they're exposing citizens' data when they're doing that. And so I think that. I mean, on one hand, it's great to be able to experiment with all of these tools and kind of work with it. I think there's some real challenges, both in the output, but also the privacy that are embedded in these models. We don't know how they're using the data we're upload. There has been no
No consensus.
information, no information about how your data is used once you, even if you use the OpenAI playground, does it get incorporated into the larger model? So I I am for being slow and thoughtful about how we apply these. And I think that's because as you know, as a computer scientist, we know the potential harms of these systems. We know how robust they are. We know how accurate they are, and so we're really well suited to critique it.
We see
But
true.
yeah, but I don't think the average person is well suited to critique it, and that's where the protections are really important. I mean, people misinterpret it for fact. Although we are getting over some of that, people are learning that
Yeah,
that
it's getting there.
it's that it hallucinates and other things, but. Of course, I'm for creating more protections about its use and thoughtfulness in that way.
Um, I think that's very important, especially given that we are interacting more and more with these tools. It's very important to understand where this data goes. All the personal conversation that we're having with large language models, basically they would know everything about us, even closer than the closest person to
And
us.
there's no information
There's
about
no
about
information.
how that data is being used. And so,
Yeah,
I mean, that's one of the things I was talking to cities about. Like, I'm like, you can't put up any personal data because you don't know where. I
where
mean,
it
if we're using
goes.
an open AI playground, we can't use it that way because we
Yeah.
don't know where that data is going. But yeah, that's the scary thing is that we don't have any regulations around that right now about
No.
what what they are supposed to tell us about how that data is
Yeah.
being used.
I have a feeling that the corporations also they are waiting to be regulated, because that's also something, yeah,
Absolutely.
that would make their life easier without being yeah, convicted for, yeah, many
No, I
things.
mean, I think they absolutely, and I think one of the things that happens in the U.S. more often than not is that uh, we expect companies to self-regulate, and I don't know
But that's
why we expect those kinds of things, but you see it with other kinds of technology innovations from Google. Even when Google was working in Toronto for Sidewalk Labs, like they were really expecting Sidewalk Labs to self-regulate themselves in terms of like how sensors data is being used. And there's a reason for that because governments benefit from this private data being out there that they can buy and purchase without having to have their own kinds of protection. So I think why we often fall in this gray zone between regulation and government intervention, because there's kind of mutual benefits that come out of
Yeah,
that gray
that's
zone.
true. Yeah, it's not really black and white, so it seems sometimes, but
Yeah, like, why is the
actually,
government not doing
yeah, it's
anything?
not
Actually,
doing.
the government benefits from not doing
Yeah,
anything.
they are not the same. Yeah. Um, Data is important, and with that, I want to go straight to Angie, to the living data studies.
Yes.
So, Angie, can you tell us about this concept, the living data study? What is
Yeah.
that about?
Yes, I would love to. I feel like it's super nice you asked this question right before the conference because I feel like I probably have a different answer in 3 days.
I will come back to you
Yeah,
then.
after we discuss it, because, yeah, to be really fair, I think, to me, in a way, it's a little bit maybe even poetic or just a hunch, the phrase living data studies. It's really an idea about how we can think about data and hopefully think about it in ways that are, yeah, helpful for all of the new ways that data is being part of our lives now. And for some of the issues that Sarah brought up about privacy and ownership and how close data is to us, but also how we use data in design, how we think about justifying and validating our decisions. And the phrase living data to me kind of embodies a little bit of a joined paradox. Like, to me, sometimes if you think technicalities or something, that the term data can seem very sort of a technology focused concept, and then living can be more yeah,
Analog.
qualitative, analog, yeah, and sort of, I guess, sort of like it's supposed to embody this paradox a little bit into coming together. But then when those things come together, it's like what then happens? Because I think we need to think about data as something that's actually in it, maybe itself can evolves and changes, but it's also connected to real things, to life. It measures life. We use it to understand the world, and it also changes, us. So it's in a way living. So I think to me it's like very evocative of lots of ideas, and I'm still trying to sort of explore what that can actually mean. And I guess for me also, it's fun to think about it in the space of architecture because that's where I work and think. So I try and think also what can living data mean for design and for architects. Yeah.
Interesting. I like the contrast you mentioned, that data actually sounds very digital, and then we have life, which is complicated and seem very distant to measure. However, uh, I think given again this new technologies, as Sarah also mentioned, lots of this qualitative
Yeah.
data that it was far away, I think, for a long time because we didn't have right tools to evaluate them. Everything has to be put in numbers before we could measure. So I think that's the
Yeah.
contrast seems very interesting in terms of the age of AI and data. So I'm
I
looking
think it's
forward.
making open the concept, the living side of data more. People are becoming more aware of it because of those things. Yeah, I think with large language models and all the generative AI with images and stuff, people are starting to have a relationship with data in a way maybe they never had before. They never even really thought about it, but they're having experience of talking to a computer, about their personal feelings or something like that into the evening, and realizing, that they're actually talking in a way to data, and they're through the model. And yeah, I think then all these questions immediately come up about what is behind this model, what's in that black box, and what is that data. And I think um, for me, I like to really think about how we can start to basic data literacy is really important to me. And so the kinds of things Sarah's saying is that the questions people start to ask is, yeah, how is data structured? How is it organized? What are the ways that it's modeled, and what are the relationships in these models that are coming forward? And I think that kind of literacy is really important, and it's really important for designers and architects because architecture is an information discipline. It is organize. The whole act of architecture is organizing and sharing information. And it's setting out also instructions for building designs, right? It's information that you're gathering to organize, and then you're only sharing information. Actually, architects don't usually themselves build the buildings. They share information about buildings. And so essentially it's a data, you could say it's a data discipline inherently. But architects also work very deeply with qualitative data as well. And I think in the past, it's not always been clear. How do we use really scientific methods with these qualitative different, and also image data sources, which I know you know a lot about. So yeah, I think that's the exciting space.
Thank you for watching or listening to the first part of the first episode. And a huge thank you to my incredible guests, Sarah Williams and Angela Rout. If you have questions for my guests and me, please comment them down below. If you would like to hear more from Sarah, Angela, and myself, please go to the second part of this episode. If the second part is online, the link to the episode can be found down below. Or you can subscribe to the channel to be notified when we post something new. If you would like to learn more about me, Seyran, please contact me at s.kademi@sciencetudelf.nl. If you would like to learn more about our sponsor, the TU Delft AI Initiative, please visit their website at ai.tudelf.nl.